The truth came quickly. At check-in, the attendant's smile froze when she saw their first-class tickets. At security, Jasmine was pulled aside for random screening while others sailed through. And once on board, the lead flight attendant, Karen Sutton, made her disdain painfully clear. She skipped their service, ignored their call button, and glared each time baby Zara cried. Another mother nearby with a crying toddler was comforted and offered snacks. But Jasmine received nothing but cold stares. Malcolm quietly began recording. He had seen this kind of treatment before, but never directed at his own wife and daughter. When Jasmine asked for warm water to prepare Zara's bottle, Karen refused. Another attendant, Troy, stepped in to help, only to be scolded by Karen for neglecting his duties. The situation spiraled. Jasmine struggled in the cramped lavatory with a broken changing table, only to be confronted afterward for taking too long. Karen deliberately spilled water on Malcolm's suit, offered him a single napkin. And then, when Jasmine tried to feed her daughter, she announced turbulence that never existed. "Ma'am, stow that bottle now," she barked. Jasmine stayed calm. "I'm just feeding my baby." Karen's nostrils fled. Final warning. Then came the unthinkable. Karen lunged, and when Jasmine pulled back, the flight attendant slapped her, hard, across the face while she was still holding her child. The cabin froze. Passengers gasped. Dozens of phones captured the shocking moment. Malcolm rose, his voice calm, but dangerously steady. "You just assaulted my wife while she held our child." Karen sneered. "I followed protocol for disruptive passengers." Without a word, Malcolm handed her his business card. "Malcolm Wright, owner and CEO of Skyline Airlines. Tell me again about this protocol." The cabin erupted in gasps and murmurs. Karen's face drained of color. The plane diverted for an emergency landing. Police boarded, but instead of approaching Karen, they first went to Malcolm, misinformed about who the aggressor was. Passengers quickly spoke up, showing videos and demanding justice. Karen was eventually escorted off in handcuffs. But the ordeal didn't end there. Behind the scenes, her mother, Elaine Sutton, head of HR, tried to cover everything up. The board urged Malcolm to settle quietly, even suggesting he step aside as CEO. But Jasmine reminded him of their daughter. "What message will this send to Zara if we stay silent?" That one question gave them all the resolve they needed. As they fought back, evidence emerged. Skyline had a hidden profiling policy that disproportionately targeted Black and minority passengers. Complaints had been buried for years. Board members had even sold stock in advance, profiting from the scandal. With witness accounts, whistleblowers, and public outrage, the corruption was dragged into the light. Elaine was suspended, Karen was convicted of assault, and the airline's entire culture was forced to change. Months later, Skyline Airlines looked very different. Policies were rewritten, staff retrained, and Malcolm launched the Dignity in Flight Foundation to ensure passengers were never again treated unfairly because of the color of their skin. On their next trip, Jasmine, Malcolm, and Zara boarded with pride. The captain that day was a Black woman, the crew diverse, and the service equal. A passenger handed Malcolm a note that said, "For the first time in my life, I flew without fear of being judged for who I am, and that's the power of refusing to stay silent." Real change begins the moment someone stands up and says, "Enough."
Jasmine Wright never imagined her dream family vacation would turn into a nightmare that would expose racism, corruption, and corporate injustice at 35,000 feet. It all began as a perfect morning when the 32-year-old pediatrician packed baby Zara's essentials while her husband Malcolm, a self-made millionaire and the secret owner of Skyline Airlines, rolled in their matching luggage. Determined to experience travel like an ordinary passenger, Malcolm kept his ownership hidden to see firsthand how customers were treated. From the moment they reached check-in, subtle prejudice shadowed their journey. Suspicious stares at their first-class tickets, unnecessary random screenings, and the cold glare of a senior flight attendant, Karen Sutton, whose disdain for their presence grew more obvious with every passing minute. Once on board, Karen skipped their service, ignored their requests, and humiliated Jasmine as she struggled to calm Zara, while other white families were met with kindness and sympathy. Malcolm began discreetly recording, sensing that what he feared about systemic discrimination was unfolding before his eyes. When Jasmine asked for warm water to prepare Zara's formula, Karen refused, only to berate another attendant, Troy Bennett, when he quietly stepped in to help. Things escalated when Jasmine, already exhausted from changing Zara in a broken lavatory, returned to be mocked, watched her husband's suit deliberately soaked, and then was threatened with false claims of turbulence as she tried to feed her hungry child. Finally, in a shocking act that silenced the entire cabin, Karen slapped Jasmine hard across the face while she held her baby, leaving passengers horrified and filming the assault. Rising with controlled fury, Malcolm revealed his identity as the owner and CEO of Skyline Airlines, and gasps rippled as the power dynamic shifted instantly. The flight made an emergency landing. Karen was arrested, but the nightmare had only begun. Her mother, Elaine Sutton, head of HR, moved quickly to bury complaints, spin the narrative, and pressure Malcolm into a quiet settlement. Jasmine, however, reminded him of their daughter. What message will this send if we stay silent? Instead of folding, the couple fought back, uncovering buried reports of Skyline's discriminatory passenger profiling policy that disproportionately targeted Black and minority travelers, proving that Karen's actions were not isolated but part of a systemic rot. The board attempted to oust Malcolm, smear his reputation, and even bribe the family with millions to walk away, but with the help of whistleblowers, civil rights attorneys, investigative journalists, and courageous staff like Troy, the truth came to light. Evidence of insider trading, suppressed complaints, and years of racial bias destroyed Elaine's career, brought Karen to justice, and forced Skyline into sweeping reforms, retraining its staff, rewriting its policies, and committing to fair treatment for every passenger. Months later, Jasmine, Malcolm, and Zara boarded a Skyline flight once again, not as victims, but as symbols of change, greeted by a diverse crew led by a Black female captain. A handwritten note from a fellow passenger captured the impact of their fight. For the first time, I flew without fear of being judged for the color of my skin. This story is not just about one slap. It is about refusing to stay silent, about turning personal pain into collective justice, and about proving that dignity is worth fighting for. And that, dear viewers, is why InspireNow exists, to share true stories of courage and transformation that remind us real change begins when ordinary people choose not to back down.